You've sent that proposal, that contract over to the couple for them to sign, and you get back crickets. Then all of a sudden, bring, you get a phone call, and it is in fact another couple that wants that same date, and they're ready to put their money down. Are you obligated to tell them to hold up while you're waiting for that first couple? Find out in today's video. Hey out there, welcome back to Wedding Industry Law. My name is Rob. I'm an attorney focusing on representing wedding and event industry professionals. And in this week's video, we're talking about that no man's land, that limbo time while we're waiting on the couple to give us back the signed contract or the signed proposal that lets us know that we are ready to rock and we are legally obligated to move forward with that date. So the idea here, everybody, is that, are you necessarily obligated to do anything for that client, specifically keep a date open when you haven't heard back from them? Like, how long do they get before you can book somebody else? Or do they get no time? Like, it's just first come, first served. So what's the answer to that? And the answer to that is going to depend. Now, I try to do the best I can to answer questions generally and try to give you some general information. I try not to say it depends, although 100% of the time it depends, but there are generalities, and that's where I like to live. But in this instance, it is going to depend. And what it's going to depend on is the language of your contract. But let's say that there was zero language to your contract, okay? Dealing with acceptance of your offer, because it's essentially when you hand that contract or you hand the proposal to the client, that's functioning as an offer. So that offer is outstanding and they can accept it, okay? So the idea here is, let's just say that your contract language and what you've told the client is silent to all that. So in other words, you're handing them the contract for them to sign, which is the offer. How long does that offer stay open? How long does that date that's on that contract or that proposal need to stay open for you? Okay. The law typically is going to say that an offer, if there's silence to everything else, okay, that's a big if. If it's silent to everything else, like if you haven't said anything about it, if the contract is silent about it, then the client is going to have a reasonable amount of time under the circumstances to accept your offer. So that means that they're not going to have months to accept the offer, but they're not going to have, they're going to have more than hours to accept it. So the facts are going to determine how long you have to keep that date open, because the law on the offer and acceptance is that your offer has to stay open for as long as the client can have to accept it. And that's kind of confusing. Let me say that again. So in other words, the terms of your offer have to stay solid for a reasonable amount of time. And that includes the date, right? So you hand that proposal with that proposed date with no other circumstances. If you hand that to them, they're going to have potentially days, maybe up to a couple of weeks, if that's reasonable within your circumstance, for you to have to keep that date open. Okay. So it's going to depend on your circumstances. If you're in a busy season, that window might go from weeks to days, but that's going to be up to some jury or some judge somewhere about what is reasonable in your situation. So how we get out of that, because we never want to be in that situation where we don't know if we can book that second couple in the door while we're waiting for that first couple. So there's a couple of things that we can do. Number one, in the contract or along with the contract, some type of writing that rides with the contract, you say this contract or this proposal is first come, first serve, for lack of a better word. In other words, if someone comes along and gets it before you, they got it. So do not count on this being open, and you need to make your decisions accordingly. In other words, the date is not being held open. So even though the proposal and the offer is in their hands, it is a collapsing offer, for lack of a better word. The date doesn't stay open. It's first come, first served. You cannot guarantee the terms of that offer. Okay, that's one way you can do it, but it's done through the words in the contract and through the words that accompany that contract, whether it's the email, the text message, the phone call, whatever it is. But you're safest if the wording of acceptance of the contract is in the contract. And then second safest is that it's in the contract as well as some writing like an email or a text that rides along with that contract. So letting the client know in writing that it's first come, first served, and you cannot guarantee that date. And as soon as they come back with you and that date is open, then you're good. Okay. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it, which I find is more common, is it's kind of like that Mission Impossible, like, this is going to self-destruct in a certain amount of time. You provide them the contract, and in the contract, the language of acceptance is you can accept this contract by getting back to me within 5 days, by getting back to me within 6 days. So that means that you would be holding the date open for them for however long that is, 6 days, 5 days, whatever you want it to be. Okay. And then you can say beyond 6 days, I can't guarantee the terms of this offer, including whether that date is going to be open. Being the actual master of the offer, you can also say this contract cannot be accepted unless you have given me the signed contract and whatever the first payment is. So you can even go a step further and say this date will only be held open for 6 days or 5 days or whatever it is, but also you have to accept in the way that I want you to accept, which is you got to give me the signed contract and the money if that's how you want to do it. So the contract and the writing that goes with the contract either denies them the ability to hold that date open and they have to act fast, or they have a set amount of time that you have given them that you hold the date open. So that's typically how I see it done. I can't say whether it's 50-50 or 60-40 with regard to people just say it's first come, first served, or they give a certain amount. I've seen both fairly often. So that's the answer. Do you have to keep the date open? It's going to depend on whether that is approached in your contract or in the writings that accompany your contract or not. And even if it is, I still couldn't answer that because I haven't read your contract. And if it's not dealt in your contract, then it's typically going to come down to that reasonable amount of time to accept offers in your jurisdiction. I hope that you found this video enlightening and educational. If you did, please be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below. Do you hold that date open for your couples for a certain amount of time? And if so, how much time do you give the couple to keep that date open? Leave that down in the comments below. If you have suggestions for future topics, let me know. New videos every Monday. And with that, folks, we'll see you next time.